7 chakras, 7 deadly sins. Which chakra is connected with each 7 deadly sin? This is actually extremely, extremely important work because all of the shadow aspects that you have dealt with, that you've seen other people deal with, all of them in general can be connected to the 7 core traumas, which are very much interwoven with the 7 deadly sins. And of course, the 7 core traumas are directly related to the 7 chakras. So I'm going to be giving this to you straight, fairly simple as I can make it, and to the point. But if you want to know a lot more about this, you want to learn how to integrate your shadow, you want to learn how to integrate the 7 deadly sins, then Black Moon is free for 6 days, the next 6 days, and you already know where that link is, so I'll see you there. I'm going to be covering this using the Sanskrit word for each chakra because it's very important that we understand what these words, the value that these words really hold. It's a lot deeper than we can even begin to touch with English. Each one of these chakras are a literal energetic portal into not just different levels of being, but also different levels of reality. So I'm going to be covering that a little bit today, but you already know first contact, we go 33 days, a deep dive with meditation into expanding through the 7 layers of reality. That's another story. Let's get started. So the Muladhara is the root chakra. This is where you are literally initiated into your body as well as into the physical reality. Our Muladhara is what allows us to feel embodied in the body and literally empowered within our body. And the major block of the Muladhara is fear. Now, what happens when you're fearful? You try to create safety outside of yourself. And if you're really disembodied, trying to create the safety outside of yourself, then most likely you're going to cling on to things. You're going to try to collect things to feel safe in your environment because you don't feel that safe in your body. Now in Black Moon, I talk about how the amygdala, one of the first parts of the brain to evolve, literally when you come out that birth canal, that's gonna be what is first conditioned with fear. That begins to shape our perception of our environment. I talk about how to reprogram the amygdala in Black Moon. The 7th deadly sin that's connected with the Muladhara is greed. Now, when you think about greed, you may be thinking about fucking Elon Musk and people like that and people who literally exploit the environment. While that is a good example of greed, we actually see greed a lot more than we think. Greed is just when we try to collect a lot of things, a lot of material things, whether it be money or items or clothes or things like that, in attempt to feel more safe and in our bodies. And so greed is the 7th deadly sin that's connected with the Muladhara because it's a response to the pain of being disembodied. Now, every 7th deadly sin exists on a spectrum of expression. It's either inwardly expressed only or outwardly expressed only. So when we see greed, how it's an actual problem in your life is if it's only inwardly expressed. If you're only trying to collect materials for your own gain. How we can begin to integrate greed is by seeing it as a collecting of resources that goes beyond yourself, that goes beyond your own well-being, and we extend that into the community. So how can we collect resources not just for you, but also everyone else who may be dealing with the same very valid fears that you have as well? How can we be greedy with love, greedy with accessibility, greedy with healthy food, with things that we really need to function as a community? There's nothing wrong with greed in itself if it is equally expressed both inwardly and outwardly. Another way to know that you need to integrate greed is if you have money trauma. If you have money blocks, if you feel really uncomfortable with accepting money, with being paid, with standing in your worth, you need to integrate greed. Because what's happening here is you're probably giving a lot of things away. And so you see how it's so funny, right? That pain of fear of maybe being seen as a certain way, or fear of having something and not knowing what to do with it, that can cause you to either want to collect more things to feel safe, or to literally cast out more things to feel more safe. And so you know you need to integrate greed if you have a hard time being paid, standing in your worth, or even having money. If your money just seems like it's going in and going out and you never feel fully stable with it, then chances are you're not being fully embodied in your true power and your true worth. the first week of Genesis, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about at the end of this video. We break down all the money blocks, we move through all of that, and we come back into our bodies. So we have greed with the Muladhara. Now the second chakra, of course, is the Svadhisthana, which is the sacral chakra. Now we know this to be the source of creativity, of sensuality, and our beautiful life force, which is really the baby that happens when our human self merges with our divine self. We get creativity. The seventh deadly sin that's connected with the Svadhisthana is, I'm sure you may have guessed it, lust. Again, let's go back to this concept of inward to outward expression. Lust, when expressed only outwardly, of course, is this insatiable desire to make more and more connections outside of yourself, even if they are surface level. So you're having very surface level sexual connections. You're having very surface level intimate relationships. And maybe intimacy only looks one way for you, and you're constantly trying to get more because subconsciously you really want to connect more in with yourself. Many times, even the people who we obsess over and who we lust over, we do that because they hold something that we really want to become or that we want to give ourselves permission to be. And so lust is connected with the Svadhisthana because, of course, the Svadhisthana rules that sacred sensuality. And the way that we can begin to integrate lust is, again, by finding that balance between the inward versus outward expression. And the way that we express lust inwardly is when we begin to have a deeper level of intimacy with ourselves. This is understanding all of the intricate details of the self, understanding all the things that we allow ourselves to be and all the things that we secretly want to be that we don't give ourselves permission for. Lust is such an important emotion because when you really dive into that and integrate it, what you're really allowing yourself to do is come alive. In week 2 of Genesis, we go all through eroticism and we go through how to begin to formulate an erotic relationship with yourself and really dispel shame, which is the major core trauma that exists within the Svadhisthana. The first core trauma is, of course, fear and disembodiment. The second one is shame. So lust is not the enemy here. Shame is. And shame is really just all the parts of yourself that your ego has discarded in an attempt to be safe and to be okay. And what eroticism really is, it's recovering, searching through that trash, or searching through that recycling bin and uplifting and recovering all the parts of you that you have destroyed and discarded in an attempt to fit in and be okay with being in society, in your family, or being with everybody else. And so lust is connected with the Svadhisthana. And again, there's a way to integrate that. More on that in Black Moon. Of course, we dive into that in Genesis as well. Now, Manipura, that is going to be your solar plexus. This is your space of willpower, of confidence, of I can do it, right? We are really embodied in the Muladhara. We go into the Svadhisthana, which we really are able to see, ooh, okay, now that I'm in my body, how does this feel? Who am I? What are the corners and spaces of my being that I haven't explored yet, right? We're exploring that in the lust integration. And then when we come up into the solar plexus or the Manipura, this is where we can have the block of trying to control everything. And the seventh deadly sin that's connected with the Manipura is sloth. Now, sloth, again, let's go back to that analogy of balance. Sloth is a complete inward expression of lack of free will, just giving up, completely putting everything down. And the way you begin to balance this and integrate sloth is by going into that space of balance of will and surrender. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in the Sahastra, which is the crown chakra, but let's dive into the Manipura and sloth. So you may know sloth as procrastination, of not wanting to complete everything, of really just trying to convince yourself that you can't do it. Sloth is this interesting flavor, a mix of avoidance, procrastination, and unworthiness. And of course, with a balanced Manipura, we have that beautiful sense of willpower. We have that beautiful sense of I can do it. And then when sloth comes in, it's all of those feelings just being taken away. There's a couple different issues that we have with the Manipura. It's not just sloth, it's not just insecurity, but it's also when you have an overexertion of the Manipura. Now, the Manipura is seen as the sun of the chakra system. Too much sun and you're gonna burn out, too little and you're literally gonna have no life, right? And so when you're having too much energy and this willpower, then you try to control absolutely everything. And this is how you know you need to start to integrate sloth, by understanding what is in your power to actually change versus what is out of your power and what you cannot control whatsoever, even if you wanted to. So this is the dance between will and surrender. This is the dance between power and allowing. This is understanding that there's something bigger that's moving the pieces for you that you need to kind of lean more into. And that's how we begin to integrate sloth. And how you know you need to integrate sloth is if you're a fucking control freak. If you want to have control over every circumstance, every situation, if you need to know all the pieces to the puzzle. And this is a direct trauma response of having too much responsibility as a child for adult things. Needing to maybe calm down your environment to make it emotionally or physically safe for you or maybe your siblings. Needing to put out everybody else's fire in order for you to be okay. When you really experience this as a child, you then turn into an adult who seeks safety and control. And you know you need to integrate sloth if you're somebody who cannot live with the unknown. If you're somebody who has constant anxiety. And if you're someone who is like, surrender? Yeah, I can't do that. We're gonna break down how to really combat anxiety, develop strong willpower, and dance between power and surrender in the 4th week of Genesis as well. You already know where the link is. Now, my favorites, not just because I'm a child of Ogun and Ogun rules the heart and Ogun represents creation and destruction and of course is my Baba, but my favorite chakra is the heart chakra or the Anahata, and the 7th deadly sin that's correlated with the heart chakra or the Anahata chakra is wrath. I'm just gonna say it, it's my favorite chapter of the whole ebook because I really talk about my arrest, I talk about my trauma, I talked about all the things that happened up until that moment where I was arrested for fighting in 2017, 2018, I can't remember. But it's really this product of wrath, and wrath is just fermented anger, and anger is just a response emotion. I'm just gonna give you a little bit of a, I guess a hard truth that people don't like to admit. Nobody is a naturally angry person. I know you may have somebody right now, you're like, yeah, now you're wrong. No, underneath all that anger is pain. Underneath all that anger is hurt. Underneath all that anger is all the parts of you that you feel like you have to destroy constantly. And so the issue is never actually wrath, right? The issue actually is inauthenticity. Wrath comes up when we don't allow ourselves to set our own boundaries, because all that anger really is a response to a boundary being crossed. And all that wrath is fermented anger. And the only way that anger actually becomes a problem is when it's not expressed in the present moment and it kind of ferments, and then you have that one moment where you just blow up. And that blow up is actually fueled by anger of the past. And so when we think about wrath and we think about the Anahata, how are they connected, right? You may be confused because New Age spirituality teaches you that the Anahata is all about just self-love. Well, you guys know. I haven't realized already, by the way, I'm a gate 8 in my Mercury in human design, which means I have to say everything differently than everyone else has ever said it. And so the way that, I think that's funny because the way that I see the Anahata is very different than how a lot of people may have taught you in the past. The Anahata is actually where we enter enlightenment. It's actually where we enter the light body. And the Anahata allows us to come into a space of full acceptance, and that acceptance then giving way to transformation. So self-love is kind of like the overarching umbrella of the theme of the Anahata, but it's a lot different than self-love. It's a lot more than self-love. It's really about self-acceptance. And the antidote to acceptance is self-rejection, which is inherently destruction. And all that wrath really is attempting to destroy something outside of yourself. And that only happens in response to you destroying your own authenticity. And so wrath is deeply connected with the Anahata. And I talk about in Black Moon, Ogun, and the story of Ogun, him coming to a village and destroying everybody around him because someone called him and told him to open the path. Ogun is the one who opens the way, but Ogun has the capacity to create a path and destroy everything in its path, in its way, right? In his way. And so we can begin to understand from that analogy in itself that Wrath is a destroyer, but it can also be used to create. What can it create? Well, it can create freedom, liberation. It can create new ways of being that you actually allow yourself to really step into and really embody. And when you are able to use your wrath to obliterate all of the confinements that you have ever lived in, you can literally create a life of authenticity. We talk about creating with wrath in Genesis as well. Now, the higher 3 chakras, we have the Vishuddha, the Ajna, and the Sahastra. Okay, so the Vishuddha is the throat chakra, and the 7th deadly sin that's connected with the throat chakra is gluttony. Now, this is a chapter in Black Moon that took me a very long time. It took a lot of research to really understand the correlation with this and really make a correlation that was based on science and past studies that have been done. But the fact of the matter is, gluttony, like anger, is a response. Overeating, binge eating, is a response. And most of the time, binge eating and overeating is a response to loneliness or a feeling of emptiness within yourself. It also can be a response to anxiety, of stress, of other triggers. But from the research that I've done, many times we see gluttony or binge eating as a response to loneliness and an attempt to almost satiate some feelings of emptiness that we have within. And so the Vishuddha, even though you, again, may be thinking about the throat, oh, this is expression. No, that's the last characteristic of the Vishuddha. The Vishuddha is actually the center that allows us to connect with the etheric template realm. It is the center that allows us to hear equally as it allows us to speak as well. And what the Vishuddha really allows us to do as well is it allows us to connect in with angels, with ancestors, with higher level beings that really exist outside of this physical reality. When you're feeling lonely, many times you're relying on people to connect in with you. But when we know and when we understand that part of this spiritual journey, at least from an African perspective, you guys know that I practice Ifa. One of the pillars of Ifa is ancestral veneration and connection. But when we really think about part of the spiritual journey really has to do with connecting in with the Ashe that lives within our bones. And part of that Ashe is really due to our ancestral connection. We can really begin to combat loneliness through ancestral reverence. And so loneliness is connected with the Vishuddha because the Vishuddha really enables our ability to be in community due to authentic expression. But when you deny your own truth, you limit your communication. And the result of that is loneliness. And so we can see the Vishuddha as being the chakra that is connected with gluttony. And now we have reached the Ajna. Now the Ajna is one of the most celebrated chakras in the spiritual community. Why? Because this is the chakra that grants you vision. The vision to see beyond this physical realm, to see beyond the veil, right? And so we can begin to understand the Ajna as the initiation and the liberation into and from duality. Now, why is this? Well, it's in the Ajna that we can enter the darkness as a way to move through the light. This is really because to activate or to awaken the Ajna energy within the third eye, one of the practices we can do is meditating in the dark, meditating between the hours of 2 to about 5 a.m. This is when the pineal gland is the most active, and we know that the pineal gland is the gland that is directly correlated with the Ajna into giving us this extrasensory perception, this extrasensory vision, this vision beyond our current reality circumstance. Ajna is connected with envy because envy is rooted in duality. Now, envy is not the enemy here. Duality is the enemy. Why? Because when we feel envy, when we feel jealousy, all that's really happening is we think that someone else has something that we desire, and we think that because they have it, that there's no way that we can have it for ourselves. Now, I'll break down the difference between envy and jealousy in Black Moon, but to move forward, what envy really is it's an invitation or permission slip to learn more about what you don't allow yourself to be. In reality, there's nothing that no one has that you cannot have. The only difference is what you allow yourself to be versus what that person that you're envying allows themselves to be. Because we understand that we can only attract what we actually are. And so duality is this or that thinking, this black and white thinking that really allows us to say, okay, this is what I can't do, this is what I can do, this is good, this is bad, and doesn't really leave room for all the ways that reality and you can actually express itself. And again, the issue is not envy, the issue is duality, and envy is an initiation into a deeper relationship with the parts of you that you don't allow yourself to explore. And so the ajna is connected with envy because the ajna is connected with duality. Now, of course, if your ajna is open, then you're creating like a god, and what creating like a god really looks like is creating beyond limitation, seeing limitation as different ways that your creation can have style and flair and be completely unique. And you're not seeing anything as a roadblock. You're seeing every roadblock as a carving out to the road and the path that you're actually supposed to be on. When your ajna is fully open and fully awake, not only do you have this extrasensory perception and this extraordinary vision beyond physical reality, but you also see beyond limitation. And again, duality is the issue here, not envy. Envy is the initiation into your own permission slips. We have reached the end, which is the Sahastra, or the crown chakra. You guys don't know how long it took me to learn how to say Sahastra. Can you say it with me? Sahastra, which really means 1,000-petaled opening. This is the crown chakra that allows us to merge back as one with the divine. And of course, the 7th deadly sin that's connected with this is pride. We need a healthy dose of pride, because the real issue with the Sahastra and how we know the Sahastra is blocked is when we feel depressed. Depression is really just a lack of connection. When you feel completely out of will, out of power, out of alignment with your own willpower, then this sense of stagnation comes over you. And then this sense of stagnation is what our brain perceives and our body perceives to be depression. Pride is the thing to integrate here, because pride is an inflated sense of what you can do. But in order to balance this energy of pride, we have to begin to fall equally into our own power and fall equally into the power of the divine, of God, of the universe. Fall equally into what we know we can do and surrender equally to what we know we cannot do, what we cannot change. You know you need to integrate pride if you feel helpless, if you have issues with depression, if you have issues with willpower, if you have issues with really getting out of bed. Now, I'm not saying put down your medication. This is not medical advice, but what this is a little bit of a deeper understanding of why you may be experiencing what you experience. Pride possibly would need to be integrated here for you to really understand what the fuck you can do, how you can really change your life. You connect in with your pride or to your inner God through connecting in with your higher self, or in Ifa we call this the Ori, which is one of the centers of Ifa, Ifa practice. When you understand your own God, I talk all about this of course in Black Moon. When you understand who your own God is, your own inner God, your own inner deity, who you really are and the power that you possess, that's when you can really step into your power and step into your ability to manifest and change your life situations. But it's only when you connect in with that inner God that you allow yourself to step fully into what you came here to do and what you can do. And so that's how you know that pride needs to be integrated. Of course, in a balanced way, but pride is essential when it comes to overcoming depression. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, again, Black Moon is free for the next 7 days. So definitely go to the link below if you want to read even more about all of this work and this book that I've taken months to write. And if you're ready for a 7-week initiation into erotic authenticity, if you're ready to fully love yourself and stop fucking living in these cages that other people try to put you in, you're ready to fully come into the space of lust, of embrace, and erotic authenticity, then you're ready for Genesis. The link is below as well, and you're gonna have a lot more information about what we're gonna do in this space. So I love you guys so much. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you soon. Odabo.